Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars, the show that takes you through every Best Picture nominee from 1927 to today. I'm your host, Kyle, and joining me today is my good friend, Ryan.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going, man?
It's going well. It's nice to be doing this with you. It's nice to be a part of this. I've been listening kind of since the inception.
That means a lot to me, because I've been away from this for so long now
Sure.
that I haven't listened to it, obviously. So it just feels like such a distant memory.
Right.
So it's nice to hear anybody say anything positive about it.
Well, I mean, I think it was always, we'll get into it. I'm a very big movie guy. So I think having any kind of podcast that wasn't just, conversational, but also informative was a very big thing. And, going through and doing the work that you both did, like talking about different years and the nominees and the ceremonies. Like, I thought it was very interesting because it's something that is kind of a part of everyone's life, right? Like, if they don't watch it, they certainly know about the Oscars and the Academy Awards, but it's mostly just tied to what happened that year because they lived it. So yeah, La La Land and Moonlight and all this existed, and I remember that, so I'll watch the ceremony. But when it comes to history and why it was founded and how far we've come with those movies, I think that's a level of history and information that people just kind of forget. And it's just, in the rearview mirror after their current year goes away. And then they just keep looking forward. It's a weird kind of not just ceremony, but it's a weird kind of practice where we almost consistently look forward and not back. So having a podcast that talks about looking back on it and talking about those movies, I thought was just inherently pretty smart.
Again, I appreciate it. I felt that way too. I feel like we're told all the time it's important to know your history. And movies are one of our biggest, if not the biggest, forms of entertainment and just media in general that we consume.
Yeah.
And so often we just don't look back. We do that in every facet of life. But movies are a big deal to everyone. So I like the idea of looking back.
It's one of those things where movies are... I'll push back a little bit. Movies are a deal to everyone, right? Movies
Sure.
exist to everyone. And I think for some people, it's yeah, I love movies. It distracts my kids when we go. And I get to have some peace on my phone. Don't talk to me if that's the way that you feel. But I have seen it. And then there are, people like my wife and I, Taylor, who are just I think Taylor is a little bit more of the entertainment side, and I like seeing a little bit more of the history and the entertainment. It is beneficial for me to see these movies. And you mentioned the other day that you were whenever you go on, was it Letterboxd? You go on Letterboxd and you're always well, how is Ryan seeing all of these movies?
Yeah.
Newer movies that are out. And the answer is AMC hates money. That's number one. And then number two is just I find so much enjoyment just going and being part of a conversation because there's so many things we want to talk about with movies, and being on the up and up with that is just something I love doing. So I'm trying to also watch older movies, which is going to kind of come to play here in a little bit. But I try to watch older movies where I can because there's such amazing thing to see where we come from with that.
Yeah, totally. That's why the show started in its first iteration, and that's why it's continuing now into its second, which brings me to the point of the show.
Yeah.
You might not be a returning listener from what is the first run of Once Upon a Time at the Oscars. This is a podcast that I did with my ex-partner a few years ago. The goal was to go back. We loved the Oscars. We watched them every year. We did this thing, which I still do to this day. When the Oscar nominees are announced, I watch everything that was nominated in every category.
God bless you.
It's exhausting. I hate myself every year for it, but I do it because I do. I enjoy watching different movies that I normally wouldn't, bring myself to watch if I was just sitting at home for no reason.
Right.
But we started this podcast. The goal is to go through every year since the Academy's inception and watch every movie that was nominated for Best Picture. After the show ended its first iteration, it's been 2, almost 3 years since then, I missed it. I really enjoyed doing this, and I wanted to get back into it. There were a couple times when I attempted to restart the show on my own, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. One, because it still felt weird to do. You know, obviously there was a lot of emotion involved in that. But two, doing a podcast by yourself is hard.
Yeah.
Super hard, because half of this show was discussing the movies from an informative and a factual and a historical sense.
Right.
The other half was opinion. And it's way easier to discuss your opinion of a movie when you're kind of keeping up a conversation or being challenged for how you feel or questioned for how you feel about a movie. Nobody questions you when you're alone. No. So, fast forward to now, I found someone that enjoys movies just as much, if not more, than I do.
Quite a bit.
And I think we've got a good thing going for us, and we're going to be able to continue the legacy, if you want to call that, of the show.
Yeah, no, I think it's a show about legacy, so it makes sense that it would be the legacy of the show too. So one thing though that I want to point out, you talked about how the way that the structure was of the original iteration of this. What changes do you expect of this iteration in terms of like the structure? Because previously, I believe you both did different years, right? You would kind of like dance around like different years, you know, from the 60s up to the 2000s and such, right?
Yeah. We'd kind of cover 1 year per decade and just skip forward until we reached modern and then go back, just so we didn't get bogged down in one generation of movies.
Right.
I enjoyed doing that, but I felt like we were missing a lot from an evolution standpoint. There were a few moments where, you know, you'd talk about something in a particular movie, a filming technique, per se, that had been discovered or invented or first shown 6 years prior. And you're talking about it like it's this new thing, but it's at that point, it's not.
Right.
So I think you lost a little bit the way we were covering the show. Not you. I think we lost a little bit of
I was
what
going
we
to say,
were
what did I do?
Yeah, it's all your fault. I don't know why you're here.
The way you were listening to that was completely off. Yeah, that's on me. My bad. I'll take full ownership of any problems with the previous iteration.
Thank you. That's a huge weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
So because of that, I've decided to go against what we did back then, and we're going to go in order of year. We're starting back in 1927, which, if you're a returning listener, you might not be excited for that. I know these movies, some of them are rough. Wait till you get to The Racket.
I'm not familiar with that concept. Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad because you watched one of the better ones. So
cool. Yay.
Here we go, man. But yeah, we're starting back at 1927, and we're just going to go in order. 27, 28, 29, 30, and so on. I think it's really going to help with just an understanding of how things evolved. And I'll feel better. I'll feel like I'm learning more, and I'll have an opportunity to kind of appreciate even the not so great entries, because when things are discovered later on, like I'll have better reference to why those movies weren't great. Oh, nobody was practicing deep focus back then, you know?
Right.
Things like that. Beyond that, we're also going to be kind of jam-packing more episodes out at a time.
Right.
So this first month, if you're listening to this on the day it drops, it's October 1st, 2025. This is going to be episode 0, just kind of talking about, obviously, what the show is, who we are, and we'll get into a little bit of the history of the Academy here soon. Every Wednesday, we'll be dropping an episode, and October is going to be just that, one episode every Wednesday. Moving forward, however, we're going to try and jam an entire year of nominations into a month. So 28, the Academy Awards in 28 are going to take place this November. I forget how many there is, 5 nominations. Mm-hmm. We're going to be spilling over outside of our Wednesdays. So we'll always have an episode on Wednesday, but if necessary, we'll drop episodes on Fridays and Mondays as well.
Right. Especially when that gets to like the later years of like, you know, the 2000s and everything, when there's like north of 8 or 10.
Right. Yeah. So at that point, you'll be listening to 11 episodes a month, up to 3 episodes a week. This might sound like a lot, but as much as I want to, I don't want to do this for the next 15 years.
Right.
At least not now. I might change my mind and be like, Ryan, we've got to think of something else because I can't stop.
Well, the nice thing is after 15 years or so, when we do finish up, the current year of the Oscars, we can just do the whole thing over again. We'll just start again. I just saw you actually die in your eyes. Like, okay.
It's like, okay, yeah, whatever you say, man.
Yeah, no.
knows?
It's going to be a lot, but I think that there's, I was a history major in college, and I think I've always liked the idea of blending history with entertainment and passion. And, movies are a very big, obviously, form of entertainment, but more so passion for me. So blending those three, I think it's really interesting to do this. And, if people have seen the movie, they probably don't need to watch it or listen to it because they're very familiar, so they can move to the one they haven't. So they feel when they get to the ceremony, or I don't know why I said it that way, the ceremony episode, that they have a better idea of how these movies have hit general audiences, right? In the history of these movies. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And, I think you take the good with the bad.
Sure.
And my mission here, let everyone hold me accountable on this. My mission is to not look at these with a lens of almost a century old, right? This would have been better as a split diopter shot. They didn't have that back then. Hey, they should have done this instead. That didn't exist.
Right.
Try not to look at it that way and just looking at more of how it affects you in the moment. Not going to be perfect on that, but I'm looking forward to seeing how these movies affect us these many years later, but also on the other end, what kind of legacy these have. Is it a legacy that holds 1 year until the next thing happens, or is it still affecting us to this day? That's something that I think is really interesting to look at with some of these features.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I struggle with modern movies, and it might just be because not enough time has passed for them to maintain that type of legacy.
Totally.
But I would say nearly all of my favorite films are at least a decade old. And I think that's because they've had the time to kind of simmer and sit in my own personal feelings.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think years, it doesn't have to be a decade per se, but I think years definitely help that. I saw Phantom Thread when it was nominated, the year that it was, 2016, 17?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Almost a decade.
In the tens. So in the tens, I remember seeing it, and I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I loved There Will Be Blood. I loved The Master. So seeing Phantom Thread, I remember seeing it and was just like, what went wrong, man? What did he do wrong about this?
Interesting.
And 3 years went by, and I watched it, and I was like, oh no, it was me. I was wanting it to be There Will Be Blood. I was wanting it to be The Master. And it's not that. It's a comedy. And I didn't think it was going to be a comedy. And once I saw it for what it was, then I had a full appreciation and could see how it fit in his canon, right? So I think time removed is very good for some of these things too, because we have these expectations and, maybe it's where we are in our life and it hits us a certain way. It's important that we revisit it and not just write it off. We'll see if I do that with one of these coming up. Because it could just be you. The problem could be you. The problem doesn't have to be the movie.
Yeah.
There are exceptions to the rule. I think Batman v Superman is the problem. I think that there are movies that exist that are very much the problem. But inherently, I think that it is important that we look at this with a pretty clear lens, right? Try and come at it in a very optimistic way.
Totally. And I don't think there's really a right or wrong.
Sure.
It might not be a problem. It might just be that you're not into it. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Or the movie is bad or good or whatever.
Just clarifying, you're pro Batman v Superman. Is that what you're saying?
I think this is a dangerous thing to have in episode 0.
All right, cool. Well, noted.
We'll cover that when we get to the 2012 Zack Snyder episode.
The infamous year that the Batman v Superman Zack Snyder verse infiltrated the Academy Awards.
Yeah. I don't remember when that movie came out.
It's best not to remember.
Yeah, there you go.
Best to leave it in the past.
One more thing about the show structure. You mentioned it, ceremony episodes.
Yeah.
If you are new to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars, each episode is going to cover a single film nominated for Best Picture. Pretty much we're going to go year by year and then alphabetically. I found that's easiest. After we cover each movie in a single year, we'll have what we call a ceremony episode. That's going to be where we talk about the actual Academy Awards ceremony from that year. So if someone showed up wearing a really cool dress, or there was controversy, if there was a movement, like the Me Too movement, that's where we'll talk about that. Obviously, we'll talk about the winners and the nominees and just everything that happened that night. And it's also going to be kind of a summary of not even just the movies that were nominated, but kind of where film and the industry as a whole was in history at that time. And it's also going to be an opportunity. We want people to write in and give their opinions about these films.
Absolutely.
We used to do it where we'd say, hey, write something in for how you feel about Seventh Heaven, but we wouldn't have those emails or letters in until after we already aired the episode.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. So we're going to save all of those for ceremony episodes.
Smart. I think that's good. Because then, if anything, we have a couple weeks in advance where we have announced, what year we're doing and we're talking about the movies. So that gives people time to write in those questions as they, hopefully rewatch these movies.
Exactly. Yeah.
When we talk about these movies, we'll talk about where they're streaming at this point in time where you can access them. I'm a very big physical media guy, so I want to purchase these movies when you can. I'll talk through those too, like, Criterion, what's available. But Kyle's done some great work here in making sure that these are accessible to the general public, not just so that we can go and watch them and talk about them, but so you can go and revisit them too. So that's very much our goal, is that you're going to watch these or be tempted to go and watch these movies and then talk about them with us in the ceremony.
Yeah. We want it to be a very interactive kind of show.
Absolutely.
We want to hear from you. Especially because, like I said, I'm no professional at all. So I want people to tell me, like, hey, you mentioned this on the podcast. You dope. This is why this didn't whatever. You know, don't call me a dope. But
only we can call each other dopes.
Yeah. And usually like ourselves. I'll never call you
true.
a dope.
Thank you,
Ryan.
buddy. I'll never call you a dope. I'm trying to think of the loving word that I would use to describe someone, and it's dope, maybe, but I don't think I'd do that either.
Donut.
Donut?
You donut.
Yeah, I mean,
absolute donut.
Donuts are great, so that's fine.
Yeah, everybody loves a donut.
Sweet. That's true. Yeah, I think that, it's important to note that, we are just of but two men, and we enjoy these movies, and we're going to get things wrong. That's just what's going to happen.
Totally.
So obviously, if you know better than us, which you probably do, hi Taylor, then you should absolutely write in and let us know. And we're not going to judge you. We're just going to be very grateful that you gave us this critique, and we're going to talk about it in the ceremony episode. And you will be banned from listening to the podcast for roughly 2 years.
Yeah.
But it's worth the cause.
Exactly. Yeah. The goal is to learn.
Yes.
And, hopefully help others learn as well. And if you can help me learn, thanks.
Or mission accomplished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting into, who we are.
Yeah.
Who are you, man?
Oh, my God.
Tell me a little about yourself.
Oh, yikes. So I was just telling my coworker the other day. They asked me what my first job was, and I told them Pet Boys. And they kind of laughed in like a, like when you watch like a toddler try to do taxes, you're like,
Very common.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, good luck with that. Mm-hmm. That's how he laughed. And he was right, because like that's just not my world. And I was let go within like 3 weeks. And then the next thing that I did is I went and worked at Blockbuster. Oh, and from then on, it was just kind of like, I always liked movies up to that point, but I didn't know that could just be your thing. I thought like it was just, well, yeah, everyone likes the movie, so who cares? But you can become like, not a historian, but you become like your friend group's historian. Right? Like I have this moniker that like, I'm just the movie guy. Like it just people know to talk to me about movies. And a client walked up to me yesterday. This is a true story. And he was like, hey, as a movie guy, answer this question for me. I was like, I have maybe talked to you about one movie. Like how on earth do you know I'm a movie guy? Right. He was right. But like, how does he know that? So I wear it well. So Blockbuster, I worked at Movie Stop, and then I got into like the world of like, success and, customer service. So that's a whole different thing. But I've just never lost that love for movies. And I've never lost, how movies made me feel. The highest highs, the lowest of lows. It makes you kind of reckon with the feelings that you have, the who you want to be kind of thing. I think you walk into a movie feeling so sure of who you are, and you walk out kind of questioning those things. And I think that's a really powerful thing. I think that the more that we sit still and not challenge ourselves, the more that we are refusing to grow. And I say that, and I also watch movies that absolutely are not making anyone grow. Like just last night I watched Strange Harvest on demand, and it was just like a fun mockumentary horror movie, and I did not learn a single thing about myself more than that. But I think you take the good with the bad. You know, you have the stuff that's like pure enjoyment and pure sugar, and then you have your vegetables. You have like the things that make you feel more rounded. So that's always been a big thing for me. And I think, you know, people don't necessarily meet me at that point with it. I think it's more an enjoyment level, as it should be. Mm-hmm. It's an experience. Like everyone should enjoy movies how they enjoy movies. But for me, it's been more of a shaping thing, you know? Sure. So I love Dear Zachary, A Letter to a Son from a Father. There's no shot I'm revisiting that movie anytime soon because it's just devastating. But I think that the way that makes you feel and the things that it makes you think about in terms of like how you want to have a relationship with your kids or your parents is interesting. And it's something that you really want to, you know, tackle. It's not a thought shared by my wife. Like she's very much, you know, more just an enjoyment factor. Hey, this movie was fun. It made me not think for 90 minutes. I'm good. And that has its place. But, you know, for me, it's mostly just about the experience of like being a part of it. And also, and I know you share this too, it's kind of amazing when you can watch a movie, let alone 90 minutes, you know, above and beyond when it's much longer, that just works. Like so much goes into these movies. And it's not one voice. It's not just the director. There's so much more going on. And you're telling me that all these people can work together under this idea of this one vision in some cases. And they can execute it. And it comes out and it's marketed this way. And people accept it this way. And it's heralded this way. And it was meant that way. That is unreal that can exist. So just the sheer idea of how these movies, you know, come to be and how we have so many great voices. And so many not great voices, but do have the same space to have these conversations through film is so interesting. I love having fun with movies, and I love having fun in general. And I'm not going to be the most super serious person on the planet, but it's really interesting that people don't see movies for what it can be, and instead see it as like, yeah, I saw Austin Powers when it was popular. Like, sure, cool, so did I. But like, there's so much more to it than that. So, you know, I hold horror movie marathons. Our second one's coming up this year with my buddy Chase and I. Like, we try to bring people together through movies. And, you know, as much as people don't want to watch movies as much as we do, when you have a marathon, when you say, hey, we're going to watch this double feature, people get together. Like, people come around and, like, unite around these movies, even when they're not great. And I think that's really important. And that's really, you know, something I want to be a part of. So the concept of being a part of this project with you is very exciting. And I'm pumped for that. And it's also just another opportunity to grow and like learn more about these, you know, historical artifacts and like how we've got to the point where we are now, how we can get to a point where Crash can win an Oscar. Like, you know, it's just, I want to see how we get to that point.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll make much more sense when we get there.
No.
But it's, I'm excited to be part of the journey. That's for sure.
Awesome. Dude, I'm excited to have you here. Both in as a means for the show returning.
Sure.
But also, like, it wasn't going to be just anybody. It's someone who is really passionate about movies and what they do for us as a species, even.
What makes you say that? Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, it's always been, I've always had a little bit of the bug. I've had, you know, podcasts that I'm still a part of, podcasts that I've done previously. And I very much enjoyed being a part of it because I thought the human connection was a really interesting thing too. So to have one that is solely about movies, you know, I had Cinema Showdown podcast, and that was a really interesting one to kind of engage people over the idea of these movies competing. But more of a historical artifact side of these movies, I think, is also really informative and something that I'm really looking forward to getting into.
Yeah. I'm really excited for you to have to watch these movies.
Subject is the word you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's going to be daunting, but in a fun way. And again, I don't know the last time I would have just like opened Tubi and just put on like a 2-hour silent film from 1927. And, you know, I really wish that there was like movies that we could talk about at this time that were nominated. A Trip to the Moon, I think would be really interesting to talk about. And there'll be some others coming up later too. But it's interesting because you wouldn't necessarily look at some of these movies and be like, oh, that's the pinnacle. Mm-hmm. One of them is the exception in my eyes, but that's the pinnacle of like silent film era. So it's interesting because I think if you did the same thing and you're like, yeah, you know, I went back and looked at 2024 and I just did not think that, I'm trying to think what was nominated. Well, let's say 2023, Poor Things. I did not think that Poor Things really represented where we were as like a culture. It didn't. It just was a movie that came out of that time. So it's interesting to kind of look back and be like, is there anything more to this other than just, hey, I did a thing and it got nominated?
Right.
It's interesting. We'll get to that point. But I have a very long experience with the Academy, obviously, because not with the Academy, my love for the Academy, because of how much I love movies. Like telling me that there was like a Super Bowl for like my passion. Yeah. I'm watching it every year, and I'm having parties and people and like live streaming and stuff, and, pools and stuff. And actually, credit to you and your ex-partner, like I started watching all of the best pictures because of what you were doing. There was no shot I was doing what you were doing, right? Watching all of the movies of every year and like every category. It's not impossible because you did it, but it's just so daunting of a task. So instead, I challenged myself to watch all the best pictures, and that included like, international, feature, shorts where I could, but mostly just best picture. And I've really enjoyed my time doing that because it's really kind of opened my eyes to some stuff I wouldn't see previously or couldn't see previously. But, I told you this, last year I went to California. Was it 2 years? Last year I went to California, which is where I was born. And we went to Anaheim for Disneyland and Hollywood for Universal. And while we were there, we kind of had a day in Los Angeles proper. And my family were just like, what does everyone want to do? What's one thing you want to do? And for me, it was just open shut. I think it was 2019 or 2020 when they announced the Oscars, they were building a museum.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw it, I was like, well, that's happening. Like, I have to go to that. And I did. And we did that last year. And it was honestly just kind of like, I understand museums now. Like, I'd go to like art museums and be like, yeah, it's art. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But now you're kind of like, oh, I found what I'm interested in a museum. This is great.
Right.
And to be able to see the historical monuments of like where we've come from and like how things started, and also see like, TARS from Interstellar, like right in front of me, and see like a gremlin from Joe Dante's movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's emotional to be there. And like you're in a room surrounded by these statues of like, best picture and best actor and best actress winners. And then you see the fashion and you see every element of how these movies come together, and it just makes you romantic for the whole thing. And I did actually wear, because I'm a sucker for a gift shop. We went through the gift shop and I bought some socks, and I don't know why The Shining is the socks that they have at the Academy of Motion Pictures Museum, but I did get them. And I am wearing them. Only thing that's weird, and Academy, get back to me. I think they're both left. You know how there's two designs on one sock, and it'll say like, I'll give you an example. I'm wearing my Shining socks, and on one side is Jack Nicholson's character with the axe, and the other side is Honey, oh my god, I forgot oh my god, here's Johnny. Thank you, Honey, I'm home. Jeez. So Here's Johnny is on the other side, right? Now, normally, if that's the left sock, on the right sock, it's going to be flipped. So if Jack Nicholson's on the right side, then on the right sock, Jack Nicholson's going to be on the left. So it's like it's facing each other, and then both sides are facing out, right? This is one where it's the same sock twice.
I see. It's like Jack Nicholson sneaking up on Jack Nicholson.
Not even. Like my left ankle and my right ankle, on the left side of them is Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
And on the right side is Here's Johnny.
Okay.
And to me, that's like weird because I feel like it would be like flipped, right? Right. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is I couldn't even turn that down at the museum. I had to get it. So I wore it today in, honor of being a part of this conversation with you. But just a little bit of beef that I've always had where I'm like, that's a weird sock.
The Academy is responsible for a lot of crimes, some might call.
Sure.
Them.
We'll get into them.
Yeah, eventually. I think that it is important that we start this episode 0 by announcing yet another one.
Right, the sock game. Your sock game is really weak.
Exactly.
Like, you know how to make a movie. Your gift shop is pretty cool. You got to stock it with the right socks.
Exactly.
Because they had, like, A24, they make books of the screenplays. Mm-hmm. And they had a lot of those, and I thought that was really interesting. Great inventory. The sock game could just use a little bit of touching up. That's all.
You guys drop the socks.
And you know what's really funny? I keep thinking about this. I had this thought a month ago. What if I just got the wrong pair? Like, what if they made thousands of pairs of these, and I got the one that's 2 left socks? And now I'm hating on the Academy for making... Well, I mean, either way, it's their fault. But still, maybe this is just the one odd pair that got the 2 left socks.
Yeah. Listen, if you've been to the Academy, and you purchase socks. I'm talking to the audience now.
Yes.
You purchase socks, and you got a left and a right sock, and Ryan is just the unfortunate soul. Mm-hmm. You see what I did there?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Thank you.
Please write in, because we want to know, are we bashing the Academy unjustly?
Mm-hmm. I'll do you one better. If you work at the Academy Museum,
Oh, even better.
come onto the podcast.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your sock production game.
Yeah, and bring the right sock for Ryan's two lefts.
Quite literally, bring me the right
Yes.
sock.
How do we continue from here, knowing that you have
I
two
think
left
you
socks?
just tell me what your experience is with the Academy and movies.
Probably a good idea. So, my experience with movies in general, I kind of feel like I got a slow start to really, really being into film. I loved movies growing up as much as any other kid, I guess. I watched Jurassic Park when I was far too young. I loved it. I was a big Steven Spielberg guy. I didn't know it was Steven Spielberg, but I loved it. I'd say in my late teens, I just got a bug where I said, I want to watch really important movies, air quotes. So I went to the American Film Industry Institutes, the AFI.
Yeah.
I think that's what that is. Mm-hmm. I went to their website, saw they had a top 100 movies of all time. I sat down and I watched maybe 96 of them to try and just figure out why movies were beginning to have such a big effect on me. I think that was a little too young for me to do that, but I still got quite a bit out of it because I found more love for movies and more understanding of how they could make me feel from that point. And that just kind of spiraled and unfolded into where I am today. I love movies. I love the way they make me feel, whether that's good or bad. I love that they can have any type of really, really heavy, serious impact on my life. It is my favorite art form above physical art, above music even. It's one of the most important things from a creative level to me. I was not lucky enough to work for Blockbuster or Movie Stop or do anything really that was related to the industry or the art.
Right.
Until after the first iteration of Once Upon a Time at the Oscars ended. I went through a stage in my life where I was bogged down with just the monotony of a regular job. So I left my job on a whim, probably not in the most financially stable way.
Sure.
Whatever.
When are they ever?
But through a series of events, I found my way to movie sets as a background actor, as a day player, even stand-in photo double. I did a few jobs on the tech side of things. I worked as a grip on some short films, some student films. Nothing crazy, nothing big, but enough to see, like you were talking about earlier, the level of collaboration that is required for movies. There was one movie in particular, I know the working title. I forget the...
What was the working title?
Places, Please.
That's a great name.
I know. It's Lillian Hall, something, The Great Life of Lillian Hall or something like that. It's a Jessica Lange movie that came out, I think, last year.
Okay.
I worked as a background actor on that movie for about a week.
The Great Lillian Hall.
The Great Lillian Hall, thank you. It's a pretty good movie. It didn't blow me away, but it was pretty good. But while I was working on it, I had worked on various sets and of different levels of skill and just ability to mesh well. Movie sets are chaotic.
Yeah.
They are insane, and it is a miracle. People have said this before. It is a miracle that anything gets made. I had an experience on The Great Lillian Hall where I think the AD, the assistant director, could see how invested I was in the moment. All the background actors had come out. We were in a theater, actually at the Strand Theater.
Oh, wow.
We were filming.
Filmed in Marietta. Interesting.
Yep. So background actors were sat in the audience while Jessica Lange was on stage performing. She played the role of a stage actress. She was acting as someone who was acting in that moment.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah. Our scene had ended. They turned the cameras around and they were pointing it at Jessica Lange at that time. And the AD said, "Okay, background, you can head back to holding. Kyle, you can stay if you want."
Oh, man.
And I was like, thank you for this. Because I guess she could see I was so invested in the moment because I had just sat there and watched Jessica Lange, I'll be honest, bring me to tears in the audience And I sat there and I watched the guy on the light board working with the actual stage lights. I watched the sound guy kind of do this ballet on stage with the Steadicam operator. They were both dancing around Jessica Lange while she gave just this incredible performance. And everything in that moment was working so fluidly. And I was watching this work of art be created right before my eyes. It was one of the most beautiful experiences I'd ever had in my life. And this came after the podcast, the first iteration of the podcast.
Right.
So I think my love for movies has evolved not only since I was, a 5-year-old kid watching Jurassic Park at too young an age, but all the way up to now in these past couple years since the show had gone on hiatus. It has evolved so much that I feel like I have a better understanding, a smaller understanding of how movies are created, but a much better understanding of what it takes to create something that moves millions of people in an emotional way. And that's what makes me so excited, not only to get back to the show, but to even go back to the beginning and cover these movies that we've already talked about on the podcast once already, just because my feeling and my passion about film has changed so dramatically in the past few years. So I don't do a whole lot in the film industry now because it unfortunately has taken such a dive from where it was even a year ago. It's really tragic, honestly, but that's another topic of conversation altogether.
Well, specifically in Atlanta too, right? Because it was very booming for a very long time here.
It was.
And it being on the outside of it, what's the word I'm looking for? The concept seems to be that it's just not as popular anymore. Like tax was a very big part of it, but now it's going to, Hollywood in general is going to other areas instead of Atlanta. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it went back to the West Coast, but even then, I'm in a lot of crew groups and things that encompass both Atlanta and New York and LA, of course. And even there, they're like, yeah, there's no work. Not like there was 20, 30 years ago, not even 5 years ago. A lot of it's going overseas. A lot of stuff, just like any other industry, technology is replacing the need for a larger crew, so there's less work for people for that reason. So it is sad to see such a creative endeavor kind of shrinking, and even the types of movies that are coming out now are being affected, and they're coming out and feeling like a less emotional, creative product at the end. I don't like to call it a product, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, I think that's what it's seen as. I think that like the lack of emotion put into it makes it feel like a product.
Sure.
So it doesn't feel like, a cinema experience anymore. It just feels like, I mean, Kung Fu Panda 4 isn't a good example because, still pretty good movie overall, but like, enjoy Smurfs. Like, it's just product was put out.
Right. And to be fair, I think the industry has always been like that to a degree. It's one of the highest grossing industries, especially in entertainment.
Yeah.
Throughout the 30s and the 40s, the studios were ruling everything. And I think we're kind of getting back to that. And we might be ready for another revolution in the film scene.
We've got to talk a little bit about the Academy and how it started, but one thing that I want to say that's a little hopeful for you, and first off, hilarious that you were thinking, wow, Ryan worked in Blockbuster, I'm so jealous. You were literally at the Strand with Jessica Lange, so, I mean, chill.
Listen,
you got to see how it was made.
I had a dream when I was a kid, and I got Jessica Lange, but I never got Blockbuster, and that hurts.
Look, I will live my clerk's life. You can live the actual life of being on set. So, the other thing too is it's a very awesome time that we're recording this because, as of last week, Warner Brothers has done something amazing. They have released they have had their 7th movie back to back in a row that has debuted with over $40 million. And we live in a time where it was very easy to say people don't go to movies anymore. And people just don't care about movies. People don't care about horror. People don't care about original stories. Look at those 7 movies of it. Final Destination Bloodlines, Weapons, Sinners. 2 of those 3, all 3 are horror. 2 of those 3 are original.
Yeah.
It's a really amazing time where people, I think, are starting to say, I do want to have stories again. And whether it's a series, Conjuring being the most recent one, whether it's the 9th iteration of a Conjuring series and it's going to make more money than any of the others, presumably, or if it's an original story and I just want to go and support it because of how it makes me feel and how audacious it is. And it's from an amazing voice, whether it be Zach Kreger or Ryan Coogler. Actually, kind of interesting names back to back, but that's not important. I think that's a really interesting time because it's kind of like, I don't want to do the whole we're so back thing, but like we're kind of getting to the point where it feels like it's a big deal again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for a lot of people it is. I hate this, but I am kind of a cynical person. I think that we are approaching a crossroads.
Yes.
A very, very important crossroads with the advancement of AI, with just what has been successful. I mean, streaming services, the way that they use algorithms and things to determine what's popular, what needs to be made.
Right.
All of that is bringing us to a crossroads where some people say, we're tired of sequels, we're tired of remakes, we want original content. And as you're saying, the numbers are showing that that is true. We want original content, or we want horror, which is not seen by the Academy even as something worth talking about.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. But this crossroads is very important, and I hope that as an art form, the majority does say, hey, we want the creative to be what goes on, what succeeds, what prevails.
Right.
Hopefully what you're talking about with what has been successful at the box office is an indicator that that is the path that we're leaning towards. I'm trying not to be cynical.
Yeah, and it's easy to be cynical these days, but especially with movies it is because, I think that you can see something like one of those 7 that I mentioned was Minecraft, a Minecraft movie, its full Christian name, and I think that it's very easy to kind of see that and be like, oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Thank you. But you can't just look at it and be like, well, people are just going to make movies based on video games now. Sure, that might be the lesson people take from it, but the lesson should be that there's an audience for video game adaptations. So why don't we try and do more of that and not just, I have an idea for a movie, let's just find a video game that fits it and we'll call that the adaptation.
Right.
Same thing with horror. Same thing with F1. Like F1, maybe my favorite summer movie. Not the best movie, but my favorite summer movie because it just felt like, oh my God, movies. Incredible. And like now we're at a point where they're literally talking about selling the cameras that they made to make that movie to Formula One and the networks that are going to be broadcasting Formula One games or races because people are now interested in watching that specific way that they filmed it. And like we're literally talking about reinventing ways through these movies. And that to me is why movies are always going to matter.
Yeah.
Right? Like we can be cynical, and trust me, throughout the age of this podcast and this reiteration, we will be cynical. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you have to be optimistic about movies because of how much change we're seeing in real time, and at least, option for change. And there is a real demand because people can raise their voices and people can, speak on the internet about how they want things to change. When people are putting money towards things, that is what studios are listening to. Totally. And that's what's really going to change these things. So say all this to say, try movies. Go see movies. If you think it's not for you, give it a shot anyways.
Yeah.
And if it's not, it wasn't for you and you walk away.
Totally.
With the exception of Batman v Superman. There's no reason to be mad at a movie for not being what you wanted it to be. But just try things. Yeah. That's all you can do. And if you love it, go support it. And if you don't, don't.
Yeah, I'm a very formulaic person. I make lists and stuff. I mean, look at the podcast itself,
Hard to tell.
I was thinking about this today. For every 3 movies that you have an interest in going to see,
yeah,
go see one that you normally wouldn't.
Right.
And I know movies are expensive right now. I get it. You got streaming services at home. If you want, go see the 3 that you really want to see in theaters, and then the one you don't really care about, or you think you won't care about, you can watch that at home. Because it might lead you to, in the future, going to see more movies from that director.
Yep.
In theater, or starring those actors, or just about a subject matter that you never thought you'd be interested in. Branch out, try different things. Some of my favorite movies I discovered through the first iteration of this podcast that I did not expect to enjoy. And now they're on my Letterboxd top 4.
Here's a perfect example. Can you imagine someone being like, oh, I'm going to check out this Robert Altman guy. He sounds really interesting. And they watch Dr. T and the Women. And they're like, I don't care about Robert Altman. You're like, you've got to go back and watch Nashville. You've got to go back and watch
Right.
Images.
Yeah.
You can't just start with Richard Gere. So, like, you got to, really put your best foot forward. And you know what? If you don't care about this stuff, fine. Completely cool. But it's worth checking out from time to time.
Yeah, try a green bean. You might like green beans.
This podcast is essentially your mom's way of getting you to eat vegetables, and we're just
100%.
gonna keep pushing that agenda.
Yeah, turns out Ryan and I actually work for Big Vegetable.
Trust me, no one's accusing me of working for Big Vegetable. That's not happening anytime soon. But if they were, cauliflower, and maybe I'm just getting older, pretty good. I gotta say, I'm not eating a raw cauliflower.
I was going to say, I think you are getting older.
Yeah, no, it's that.
I think that's what it is.
It's that, unfortunately. I'm just saying that cauliflower is a really good substitution for potatoes. So if you're trying to do like a mac and cheese type thing, or like, with a baked potato, do cauliflower. Great.
We're supposed to
It's sad,
subtly
right?
work under Big Vegetable, and this is getting very heavy-handed.
Sorry.
So that's a little bit about you and me.
A little.
A little bit. You'll learn more as time goes on. Hopefully that's something you're interested in. If not, fast forward and get to the movies, right, guys? That's what you want to hear. During the first run of the show, one thing that we didn't cover was what the Academy is. The Academy of Motion Picture Art and Sciences. That's important.
Pretty important.
Yeah, I left that out. And it took me like 4 or 5 years to realize that. So that's something we wanted to talk about in this episode 0, this intro episode.
Yeah. And I think to start this off, I just had one question for you, Kyle. Okay. Obviously, very important mayors, right? Mayors of states, mayors of, John Mayer wieners. There's a ton of mayors out there. What's the importance of Louis B. Mayer?
I mean, he is the catalyst for why the Academy exists. He was the head of MGM Studios at the time, and this is so interesting. I did not know this. The reason that the Academy was created was to serve as a union.
Yeah.
What? I had no idea. But I guess it makes sense. Louis B. Mayer. Meyer? Louis B. Mayer? Oh my goodness. You've confused me with all of
it's weird because like it's the same way that you would say Oscar Mayer, but also John Mayer.
Right.
But it's spelled the same way. So I think he'll forgive either. Well, he's not around, but
yeah,
his family will.
I don't know. Yeah, he probably wouldn't forgive. He'd be like, "This is how you say my name."
Yeah, if he's fighting for a union, he's not gonna
right.
Either one's fine, sir.
Right. But he wanted to come up with this union to handle labor disputes and things. He also was going to use it as a way to change the image of the film industry.
Because it was purely business up to that point, right?
Right, there was that element of it, but it was also because Hollywood was starting to get a pretty salacious image. I mean, this is well before the Hollywood Code, the Hayes era, where you weren't allowed to talk about certain things, you weren't allowed to show skin, show sexual relations on screen. But this was before that. So a lot of people are kind of shocked to learn that there was swearing in early 1900s movies, or there was nudity. Like, you don't expect it. And that's because of the Hollywood Code that came out years later.
Right.
But Hollywood was getting this really kind of damning image. There was a lot of controversy. It was kind of, Hollywood was known for drugs and sex and just wild, crazy parties and things. Murder. Yeah. There's a huge incident with movie star Fatty Arbuckle.
Great name.
Yeah.
We need to bring back those names.
Yeah, but maybe not with him as the inspiration.
Hey, I'm not saying his actions. I'm just saying the name.
Sure. I'm okay with that. Yeah, we can do that. But he wanted to move away from these negative images that were, the church and things and people had issues with Hollywood in general, and it was starting to affect, what else? The bottom line. So his idea was to create this academy for both those purposes, handle union disputes and reshape the image of Hollywood.
Right. But at the same time, like, there was, as a result of that, they talked about doing some kind of like annual banquet, right? Like, this wasn't necessarily for the awards themselves. Like, this wasn't, hey, pitching the actual award ceremony, but it was more a banquet to kind of come and like celebrate these movies and celebrate the union that they've started, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in his mind, the best way to get people excited about joining an organization such as this is to be like, oh, look, we're going to honor you for your work.
Because what do movie stars love more than being celebrated?
Exactly.
Smart.
It's brilliant, really. So Louis B. Mayer, he got together with actor Conrad Nagel, Fred Nieblo, also an actor, and Fred Beatson, who Fred Beatson was a huge contributor to the reshaping of the image of Hollywood. He got together with these three to talk about what he wanted to create, and after that little meeting, they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to invite 32 other people for a total of 36, and we are going to start the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. 36 people.
If only, man.
Right? Isn't that cool? And it was made up of various different actors, directors, lawyers, producers, technicians, and writers. A lot of the names on this list are people that we'll talk about. Some of the actors, Conrad Nagel, will show up in a lot of movies that we're going to cover in like the early 30s and things. Douglas Fairbanks is a huge name in the Academy. He was the first Academy president. He was married to Mary Pickford, who was also a founding member of the Academy. She's been nominated countless times. So many of these people, you'll see their name pop up if you really go into detail and look at all of the nominations in the first few years. They're going to pop up as nominees, which makes sense. You found the Academy, we're going to honor you.
Well, it also makes sense they want to open with a splash because their first honorary membership that they opened up was to Thomas Edison.
Right, yeah.
So,
yeah.
If there was a Taylor Swift at the time, is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so, what better way to start the Academy than to honor someone as controversial as Thomas Edison? I don't know if that's controversial or not. I think it is.
Right. I mean,
I hear bad things about him.
Of the time, I suppose so. And maybe it was just more so the progress of like using lighting, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did do a lot for the industry, but through the research that I've done over the past couple weeks, he wasn't the only one doing it.
Sure.
There's a lot of people all doing kind of the same thing, and history has just pointed out specific people and said, this is the most important person, or Birth of a Nation is the most important feature-length film of the time. And you're like, don't forget, they were making movies in Europe, too.
Yeah.
But back to the Academy.
Hindsight is all. I mean, so from this, though, like from the banquet or, the banquet that they've put together, having these honorees, it split off into branches, right? It wasn't just like, we're celebrating movies in general. There's 5 different branches. Those 5 branches being producers, actors, directors, technicians, and writers. Which is interesting to hear because technicians is something that kind of fell off after a while. At least not something that we see much now of.
Yeah, I think technician just broke off into all the different
editing
branches.
And whatnot.
Editing, sound, and all that.
Okay.
Because really, you didn't have sound.
True.
Back then. And you had editing. It was a little...
There was, in fact, the presence of editing. That is true.
That's a joke. I know that movies required a tremendous amount of editing, and it was a very artful skill. I know that editing is important.
It's just crazy to see how far we've come.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, those were the 5 branches when it first was established, and obviously that has evolved into, currently, I believe there are 19 branches in the Academy. Yeah, and it's interesting to think that it started out to handle labor disputes as a union and then to change the image of Hollywood. Looking at what it's done now and what it's currently doing, let me ask this. Do you have any idea what they do now, or did you have any idea prior to any research you did for the episode?
No, I mean, just a tiny brief amount from having gone to the museum itself, but more of... How do I put this? Less of a historical artifact and more of a historical curation, right? Like the work that Criterion does. It felt like a similar way of the way I view the Academy of like housing these movies and like the history of it, not so much celebrating it, which is why I loved seeing that museum exist. So you could learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
And just a bit of, hindsight being 2020, I wish I spent more time just like reading through the history while I was at the museum. I had such limited time that it felt like it was more like, did I see the things I wanted to see and be in front of the things I wanted to be in front of? But I would love to just kind of like clock in at like 8 o'clock, walk through this museum and not leave till like 5 p.m. because it does feel like everything is present there for you. Much like on the internet, it's just a matter of like being willing to go and find it.
Right. Yeah. It definitely seems like the kind of a museum I would have to get a multi-day pass for to really just absorb everything.
I think you have to go alone, right? Like
Sure.
I think you have to go alone because then otherwise it's like, are you cool with the glacial pace that I'm taking right now? Like moving side to side. Bless Taylor's heart. She was like, oh, those are the clothes from Titanic. And she was fine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, that is one thing that the Academy does. It does house the Academy Museum and all of the artifacts and things that go into there. So it is a historical entity, I guess.
Right.
Organization. I believe probably the biggest in the world. But it's also, it does a lot for film preservation, for learning and teaching and education. They offer scholarships to students as writers and things. That's stuff that I feel like I vaguely knew, but didn't know the details of. It does seem like they do a lot of good, which is kind of reassuring, because when you sit down and you watch the Oscars and you say, who cares about all these celebrities just going around applauding for themselves? Do we need the Academy? Do we need the Oscars? They do a lot of good for the industry.
They do. And, I think that there's a lot of, especially current years, but just overall, there's a lot of anger that can be directed towards the Academy because, like all people, certainly myself included, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to do things wrong. And there's going to be blind spots, hence, multiple movements that have come out and been heavily supported by the people who have attended those events, the Me Too's, Palestine pins and everything, like just being more vocal about things. Because one of the first things they did, starting as a union or a way to form a union, was kind of how they became an honorary organization, right? Because at the time, during the Great Depression, they sided with larger studios that were trying to get employees to take voluntary cuts, wage cuts. And the Academy supported that. And because of that, they lost a lot of that goodwill in terms of starting a union. And that resulted in them being an honorary membership or an honorary organization. So interesting how it kind of started from a very good place, but just these tiny mistakes that you can make over time, not making you a horrible organization, we'll get to that, but more so just the way you're perceived is really interesting because that's something that follows the Academy for decades, if not a century.
Right, yeah. Yeah, they're coming up on a century, which is wild.
It is really. We will be doing this at the time of the 100-year anniversary, which is very interesting. Man, we'll have to do something for that.
Yeah, we will.
Maybe we should talk to Jessica Lange and see if the Strand will let us do something.
What a memory.
You got an in now, right?
Yeah, I've got an in. She did ask me...
if you ever have a podcast, Kyle.
No. She came up to me at one point. She was outside the Marietta Square.
Which is hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah,
but
so
go
bizarre.
ahead.
But she looked up at a tree, great big oak.
Uh-huh.
She said, "How tall do you think that tree is?" And I said,
"Not as storied as your career, Miss Jessica Lange."
I was just like, I don't know. I've never thought about the height of a tree before. Hello.
And absolutely, I feel like that's what they write movies about, where it's kind of I never stopped to think about how tall trees could be until the great Jessica Lange set me down.
Exactly. So that'll be in the...
Do you think she celebrates Arbor Day?
I hope so.
Maybe she's just big into trees.
She might be.
Big tree person.
Oh, I just like to think that she was out there just enjoying the things that we forget to enjoy,
Like how tall trees can be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was impressed.
I do like to think that maybe there's a kid eating ice cream, having a great day, and she's like, not whimsical enough. She's like, where's a tree? Look at this tree real quick.
As far as the history of the Oscars go, today I just wanted to talk about the inception of it. And why it existed and things. I figure every ceremony episode we cover, we'll kind of talk about any changes that came out that year with the Academy, what they stood for, what their goals were. If you are interested in the history of the Academy, though, I've been reading this great book. It's called Oscar Wars by Michael Schulman. It's awesome. It goes from the start of the Academy, and it goes in a sequential order, but it skips to the really big parts of what changed in the Academy.
Interesting.
So, you brought up the union siding with the studios and things like that. There's a huge chapter about Frank Capra, who was the president of the Academy, and why he did those things and how he got to be the president. Really great book. Even if you're not super interested in it, it's just really well written. I have it here in my hand.
I'm very glad to see, for the listener, he had it on top of another book, and I was very concerned about how deep this book was.
Yeah.
But it does look to be a respectful, 400 pages maybe?
Yeah, right around there, 400, 500 pages. The book underneath is called Bringing Up Oscar, which is about the creation of the Academy as well. I'm not too far into it, it's probably great. I don't like the writing style so much.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
Like a subject matter you really want to get into, but you just can't get into the format of it.
Yeah. It bums me out. If you've read either one of these books, let me know that Oscar Wars is great, and let me know if I need to keep going with bringing up Oscar, because I'm trying. I'm trying hard, guys.
I guess I need to read both those then.
It's good.
Or at least Oscar Wars.
Yeah. It's great. Really loving it. That's the Academy, though. I mean, shortly after their inception, they went with that idea of honoring movies with the first Academy Awards. Those took place in 1929, and they cover the movies that we'll be talking about through the month of October.
And just to clarify, that's 1929, but it's the movies that came out prior.
Correct.
And not in the year of 1929 exclusively.
Exactly. I believe officially it's movies that came out in 1927 and 28. So,
which carries the tradition of 2025 Oscars celebrating the movies of 2024.
Yeah.
Got it.
The first few years of the Academy have this weird, like, shifted thing because they wanted to allow not just the movies from 28, because there were so many good things that happened when the Academy was created. It's kind of this elongated window of time.
Right.
But that falls into a much more easy to follow window as we move forward. But we can talk a little bit about what we'll be covering in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
What movies we're going to be going over.
The next 4 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. So, as I said, we'll probably go in alphabetical order.
Numerical in the case of Seventh Heaven.
True. So next week we'll be covering Seventh Heaven, directed by Frank Borzage. After that, we'll do The Racket, a Lewis Milestone movie. And finally, Wings, a William Wellman film, followed by the ceremony episode on, what is it, the 28th of October?
29th.
29th of October, thank you. Again, that's every Wednesday we'll be covering a movie. Next month will be completely different, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. How do you feel just in general about the movies this year, from what you know about them?
I think it's obviously a very historical year, right? I think that the movies kind of support that too. I think that as we are accustomed to in recent years with the Oscars, you always feel like there's some kind of overarching theme with the movies that come out and how it's, in response to political times or, things happening in the world, pandemics and whatnot. You can feel that there's like a theme of like survival or connection. And it's interesting because this being the very first year, you're not really sensing much of that theme, right? It does kind of tend to be of the time. And there's, even emotionally, it feels like it's kind of all over the place. There isn't one specific thing that's being told. But I guess if there's anything, war seems to be pretty prominent, right? Yeah. If not just about, the movie itself, certainly a pretty pivotal character arc in each story seems to be that war is prevalent. And it's not surprising to realize that in 1929, that was on everyone's mind.
Sure.
So I'd say that would be the theme, but it doesn't feel very intentional.
Yeah, it just circumstance
right.
of what was going on. And in some of these movies, probably one of the more boring elements, just because I feel like action is a hard thing to
depict.
They depict it well. It's more of a hard thing to, what is the word? Sustain? Like,
sure. The sustainability.
Yeah. Of how it translates to today. There's a word for that. Hold up, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's the word.
Yeah, that's the one. It's 2 words. It's hard for action to hold up over time. I feel like romance is kind of, when you love someone, it's the same in 1892 as it is in 2025.
Preservation?
Yeah. Yeah, like it doesn't preserve well.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Exactly.
We'll land with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. And, just for one of the movies alone, no spoilies, that we'll talk about in the next couple weeks, it does feel like, for the most part, it's kind of tacked in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like an integral part of the story. Whereas, another one, it quite literally is the story. So I agree. I think the way that you can capture that back then is obviously very different than you could now, and it's done much differently. But I'd say war overall being the theme and how that kind of like fit in. I also think it's an interesting time because watching it now, especially 98 years afterwards, you definitely feel how, I guess it's almost like it's inconvenience, right? Being drafted.
Right.
There's a movie where someone's just kind of like, oh man, I got to go to war in an hour. Like, that's almost beat for beat the dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because otherwise you would just feel like it's such like a monumental experience for you and not just like what's your Tuesday looking like, dog?
Right, yeah.
It's like, I guess I'm going to war with the French. I don't know.
Yeah, it really puts into perspective what inconveniences for us today.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it. I have more to say about it, but that's for another episode.
Totally. So that's the schedule. That's the plan. That's what we'll be doing. I'm excited. You seem excited.
I am excited.
You seem annoyed.
I'm annoyed? What am I annoyed about?
No, just off mic, the hint about some of these movies in your opinion. I'm just looking forward to recording.
I think that we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to the audience to be very professional about these movies and not rank it with eyes of someone in 2025.
Right, yeah.
With that said, I do think there's some decisions that could have been done differently.
Sure.
And I'll share that. And I will not say what movie it's about, but I am looking forward to watching The Racket and Wings.
Perfect. Brilliantly said. But yeah, I mean, I think that's going to do it for this episode 0.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's done a good job. I think that it has, this was created to serve as a balance between the original iteration and this iteration, which always, well, I shouldn't say always never, but was never intended to eclipse the original, right? This is always a companion piece along with the original iteration to where you can go back and listen to those. And then you can get more of a historical side with these and also just the more chronological from the very beginning on.
Right.
So I think it has served as a very good introduction, not just to ourselves in the podcast, but where things are going to go forward.
Sure. Yeah. And in addition to everything you just said, a big part of restarting the show this way is because of my own
Your
evolution.
Experience. Yeah.
So I'm really excited to do this again. Hopefully, if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. The support means so much to me. You have no idea. If you're a new listener, I'm really excited to have you aboard. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. If you have any questions or comments about the show or anything to say about the movies we're going to be covering for this first year of the Academy, shoot us an email over at outaopodcast@gmail.com. We'll cover all of those letters and emails on the ceremony episode at the end of the month. And if you want to give us a follow on social media, I'll be honest, I kind of forgot what those addresses are, but I will have them all in the show notes. Most of them are Once Upon a Time at the Oscars, or they are OUTAO Podcast. So we're on Instagram, TikTok, follow us on YouTube, and we also have our Patreon as well if you'd like to show further support.
Yes.
We're going to be doing some cool stuff over there. That's patreon.com/OUTAO podcast. The goal right now is to have things like a monthly newsletter where I'll be typing it up and covering just things going on in the industry in general or movies that I've watched or that we've watched together and things. Just kind of an overview of what the month's been like overall.
Right.
Eventually, we'd like to maybe do a secondary show exclusive to Patreon where, I don't know, we're still kind of deciding what we want to do.
I think there's a lot of opportunities. We're talking about Best Picture, but there's a lot of other categories.
Sure.
And, nominees in different categories. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to talk about those. I think there's also, retrospectives to talk about, like, how these things hit and compared to now and not just the historical side. So there's a lot of opportunity, but obviously, we want to make sure this is something that you guys are enjoying as well. So write in, let us know things that you would like to see as well. If it's not just corrections for what we've said, some interest that you have that goes into the Oscars somehow that we can assist with. Is it watch-alongs of these movies that are available on, streaming services? We'd love to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, and if it's things you want to see in the Patreon as well, which is pretty much what you just said.
Yeah.
I zoned out a little bit. I didn't zone out.
I have that tendency. It's fine.
I was trying to think
I just start
as well.
speaking, eyes just glaze over.
Right.
Yeah. That's why podcast is great, because ears can't glaze over, so
yeah,
everyone has to listen.
You underestimate my power. Also, as far as where you can watch the movies, right now, all 3 of the movies are available on Tubi. Mm-hmm. Free platform. I love Tubi. It's fantastic. You're going to be upset with me.
Uh-oh.
Seventh Heaven is available on Tubi.
Yeah.
Watch it on YouTube.
Hold on.
We'll get into that next episode, folks.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I think I just had a realization.
So, that's going to do it for this episode. We didn't talk about a send-off. Do you want to traditionally what we did in the past, or do you want to do something different?
I think that's really smart, because if we didn't do that and just did like a unique call off, it would have to be different every episode.
Sure.
Because I wouldn't want to say the same thing I'm thinking right now at the end of every episode.
Fair play. Fair play. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. As always, I'm your host, Kyle.
And I'm Ryan.
And we'll
See you at the movies.